Thank you, Deb. And I speak funny, and I'm from New Jersey. Anybody else from New Jersey? Couple good guys and women. This morning, I'd like to take a look at the character Moses. In the fourth book of the Old Testament is the book of Numbers. And it's about the people making the transition from Egypt to the Promised Land and how it develops after that. To refresh our memory, the Jews ended up going to the land of Egypt when they were starving. And Joseph was the head honcho of the land. And the Jews were given the best land there was. And they prospered. They grew in number, and they grew in wealth. And then Pharaoh died. And the new Pharaoh did not know Joseph. And he became jealous over their power and their numbers, and he became fearful. So he made them slaves. And in their slavery, we have the story of their deliverance. And their deliverance worked something like this. The Lord says to Moses, I want you to go to Pharaoh and demand from Pharaoh that he let the people go. At the very same time, I will harden Pharaoh's heart so that he will not let you go. Now that sounds kind of stupid, doesn't it? That doesn't make any sense. But as you read further, the Lord says, I don't want him to let you go. I want him to be so enamored by my power and my strength that he will know who I am and that he will throw you out. And he will not only throw you out, he will pay you to leave. That's an important component. He will pay you to leave. And so we have a story about a series of plagues that take place, and eventually Pharaoh calls in Moses and says, get out. Take all the animals that you have with you. And the animals is a big source of revenue and a lot of other things. Take all your animals with you and all the people and leave. And Moses says, okay. He doesn't jump up and down. He just says, okay. But we will need to have clothing because you've taken all our clothes. We work with barely nothing as slaves. We will need gold, and we will need silver. And Pharaoh says, we will give it to you, and they leave, and as they're leaving, the people are taking off their watches and their rings and their necklaces, and they are paying off all of the Jews as they are leaving. Crazy experience. Anybody ever pay you to leave? Just say, get out of here. They're being paid to leave. They're all excited, and they are leaving their past behind them, and they are going to an unknown, following Moses. Everybody's excited until they hit the sea. And that's like entering a cul-de-sac. You ever drive into a cul-de-sac? You don't want to go back and you can't go forward. Now what? And the sea opens up. The people pass through. The Egyptian army has changed their mind, and they are pursuing. They want their gold back. They want their silver back. They want the people back as slaves. They enter the sea, and the sea folds back over, and they drown. The people now are on the other side, and they are dancing in the streets with joy. Well, not really. They don't have streets, but they're dancing in the sand. They are celebrating. They are singing and cheering and dancing. Have you ever celebrated? Are there things in your life that you went out of your way to celebrate and to mark mentally? I remember my wife being really ill. Lots of chemo, lots of surgeries. Doctor called her Ned. I had no idea. Ned, it stood for no evidence of disease. And a lot of people have helped us through that, praying for us, bringing us food, all that type of thing. And so I gathered the group up, and we went out for dinner, and we went to a restaurant, and we celebrated. We had a good time, and we marked the event. There's some things in life that need to be celebrated. It's Valentine's Day. I hope you celebrate birthdays or anniversaries or whatever. There's things in life that need to be celebrated. And I have the type of personality, people tell me I could win the lottery and no one would ever know it. You wouldn't be able to read it on my face. But once upon a time, I remember telling this story once before, I negotiated taxes for a hospital. It wasn't my hospital, it was somebody else's hospital. And eventually the two hospitals, we ended up buying the other one. And as soon as my signature went on the checkbook, IRS went after me personally for this other hospital's taxes. They demanded about $690,000 from me at 12% interest. It didn't take it was a 10-year lawsuit. It didn't take long before that $690,000 became $1.5 million. And you know, when you pay your taxes, sometimes you get a little bit back. I would get a letter from IRS that said, "Dear Mr. Leeds, inasmuch as we owe you $1,000 and you owe us $1.5 million, we reduced your balance to," and that eventually came to court. 10 years it took. 10 lousy years. It was a jury trial, just like you see on TV, and the jury came out, and they stood up and said, "Not guilty." And I did not experience any joy then. All I experienced was relief. Yeah, I could feel my body just kind of fold up on the floor. It was relief, it wasn't joy. But then the judge, bless his heart, you know those gavel things? He slammed it down on the table, and then he turned the gavel over and held on to the hammer part, and he pointed that thing at the IRS people. And he said, "You will pay back every penny you have taken from this man. You will pay him back with interest, the 12% interest that you charged him, and you will do it with expediency." Is that understood? Oh my goodness. I was a happy camper. I was beaming from ear to ear, and I jumped in the car, called my wife, jumped in the car, raced to the airport. That plane, those engines could have died, and I would have flown that plane. Oh, that was a happy day for me. I was dancing in the streets. And the next day, I was even happier still. Anybody ever get summoned to IRS? You want to put you? It's down on Kroger Boulevard. If you go there, it's like going for a root canal. Nobody walks in there happy. You can tell the look on it. But not me. I walked in there. I wasn't even summoned. I just wanted to go see him. So I walk in and have that little bell, little thing you have in a motel or something, you ring the bell. I didn't go ding and wait. I went ding, 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 ding. And people are looking, who's this crazy man out there? I was crazy. I was a happy guy. I kept ringing that thing, and finally somebody came out, gave me that dirty look and said, "Can we help you?" And I knew the line they had given me for 10 years in a row, and I simply said, "You have taken money from me without my permission. I want it back with 12% interest, with expediency." That was fun. Thank you. And the guy said to me, "Did you just win a lawsuit?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Congratulations. I'm glad for you." They're not all mean, nasty people. They're paid to be mean and nasty. But back to my story. I was a happy camper. These Jews that have just gone through all this experience are happy campers. They are jumping up and down for joy because they have left the old behind and the new is in front of them. Have you ever noticed that the new in front of you can be really scary? Sometimes the old is familiar, and there's a comfort in that. The new can be scary. My joy spilled over to the second day so I could go to IRS. Their joy fades very quickly. It's where are we going to get water to drink? Where are we going to get food to eat? Who's got a good map how to get out of here? And they start whining and moaning and groaning. And I say to myself, I would never do that. You would never do that either, would you? We can take our gratitude and forget it quite easily. I look at what these people have experienced. The plague after plague, the being thrown out, the being paid to leave. And now they say, Moses, did they run out of cemeteries in Egypt? We could have been buried back there instead of making this trip. How are we going to eat? What do we do for water? This and that, and they're complaining after they have just experienced all that they have experienced. And Moses get beat up. You think they'd be cheering him. He walks around the tents and all he hears is people complaining, every one of them. And then we have a chance to hear Moses' prayer, which goes something like this.
Lord, why are you treating me, your servant, so miserably? What did I do to deserve the burden of a people like this? Are they my children? Am I their father? Is that why you've told me to carry them in my arms like a nurse carries a baby to the land that you swore to give their ancestors? Where am I supposed to get meat for all these people? They keep complaining and saying, give us meat. I can't carry all these people by myself. The load is far too heavy. I'd rather you killed me than treat me like this. Please, spare me this misery.
Even Moses complains. He strikes the rock and they have their water. He prays and manna is delivered from heaven. You may have heard me say that before, but manna means, what's this? What is it? They don't know what it is. But they eat it and they survive on that. And then it doesn't take too long before they complain about that. And I understand that. If you had to pick your favorite meal, whatever it happens to be, you really don't want to eat that 7 days a week. You know, we like a little variety, I think. And then the Lord says to Moses, I will take my spirit that I have put upon you, and you pick 70 people to run the place, and I will share my spirit with them. And they become the leaders of the group so that Moses doesn't do it all by himself. And that's kind of how the life develops, where the leadership is not just Moses, it's the people. Why do I tell you the story, and what do I want you to take away from it? Gratitude and celebration is like putting money in the bank. Because all of us will face a future that we cannot see. All of us will lose loved ones. All of us will have health difficulties. All of us will face issues in life in which we do not have the answers. But if your bank is full of gratitude, that will cover you through that. No one is alive today who the Lord has not blessed in a variety of ways. And whatever the hurdles in life that we face, the lesson is that God will see us through that. Even if it is our own death. One of the secrets, I think, rests with the word meekness. Two people in the scriptures are described as being extremely meek, Moses and Jesus. And you all know, because I've mentioned it so many times, words change meaning over time. And I don't know what you think the word meekness means. For me, there's a tendency it means kind of wimpy, for lack of a better term. But meekness is one of those terms that's used in the New Testament. It's what I call the picture words. You have to understand the picture rather than the definition. And meekness is a term that's applied to horses. There's a lot of things in the scriptures refer to horses. Meekness refers to a horse. And horses, by their very nature, are scared to death of fire. You put fire near a horse, it will go crazy. We, by our very nature, are afraid of the unknown future. But back to the horse. As afraid as it is of fire, the military needed to train horses. And military often functions at night. And you can't function at night without a torch. So when a horse was properly trained and you lit a torch, when you could walk by the front of a horse with a torch in your hand, and that horse would not bat an eye, because it was taking its cue from the rider, not the reality of life. That horse was declared to be meek. Isn't that an interesting picture? When you could pass a flaming torch in front of a horse, who by its very nature would scare him to death, and he wouldn't flinch because his rider was relaxed. He was the meek horse. Jesus is described as the meekest. The reality of life did not frighten him. Because he knew his Father was on his back. That's the picture. And my hope for all of us is that you will save up and celebrate all that you can, so that when you face the difficult times in life, you can do it with comfort and with meekness. And may the future not scare you.